A couple of notes before we get started. I want to go through kind of our agenda for the day for you. So today we have a presentation that's going to cover two important things. The first part of the agenda, or I'm sorry, the presentation, Corinne and I from the InnerTribal Resource Center are going to introduce you to our center and also to the Native community at UC San Diego in general. And then the second part of the presentation, we're going to invite our friends and colleagues from the Raza Resource Centro to walk you through the personal, some more in-depth conversation about the personal insight question aspect of the application. After the presentation, we'll have a short period for Q&A. So if you have any questions, whether it's for the Intertribal Resource Center, the personal insight questions, UCSD in general, or the application process in general, we have a good group of folks here available to answer those questions. You can type your questions into the chat at any point during the presentation, or when we're done with the presentation, if you want to raise your hand or wave at me or give some kind of indication that you have a question, we'll get to it that way as well. I also wanted to start off our presentation with a quick land acknowledgement. UC San Diego was built on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation, and we thank the Kumeyaay community for their stewardship of the land and recognize them as the original inhabitants of this area. So with that, I'm going to start some quick introductions. I said we have a really solid team with us here today. Myself, like I said, I'm the director of the Intertribal Resource Center, and also joining us is going to be Corinne Hensley-Delfield. She is our coordinator in the Intertribal Resource Center. We're also going to have two presenters from the Raza Resource Centro, Diana Calderon and Juan Diaz, and they're going to, like I said, walk you through the personal insight questions. And then we're going to be joined, or you'll have an opportunity in your breakout sessions to work one-on-one with one of three admissions officers that we have here today. Michael Trask, who's Associate Director in Enrollment Management, Christina Sandoval-Paquette, who's an admissions officer, and Milan Bote, you'll have to tell me. Another admissions officer in enrollment management. So you'll have an opportunity to work with one of the three of them to get some one-on-one feedback. And the last person I'd like to introduce is Leonard Almero. He is actually a very recent Native American alum from UC San Diego. When you join your one-on-one breakout session, if it's not your turn to meet with one of the admissions officers, you'll be back in the main room with myself, Corinne, and Leonard, and we're going to be there to answer more questions about the Native community at UCSD. Leonard is going to be a great resource to answer any questions you have about student life, specifically Native American student life at UC San Diego. So we'll be there waiting for you when you come out of your one-on-one session. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Corinne to tell you a little bit about our Native community, campus community.
Hello, I'm happy to join you all today here. I'm going to talk a little bit about our campus community at UC San Diego. So the Native American community at UC San Diego is a small community, but we are mighty. The picture that you see here is from our Native American Heritage Night Padres game, not this past September, but the September before. This was the third year we had done it. The first year we only had 3 students attend. In that past year we had over 30, and that's the same for the rest of our programs. We have grown exponentially over the years, both in the community size and in our programs as well. We have students that come from all over. We have them come from our urban centers, from towns, from the reservations, from California and out of state, and it doesn't matter what your background is. You can have come from a traditional background, or you're just learning about your heritage. It's all good. We also have some new Native American faculty members that were hired this past year in ethnic studies and in education studies. And then ethnic studies also just approved the creation of a Native American and Indigenous Studies minor and PhD concentration.
Thank you, Corinne. So a little bit about the Intertribal Resource Center itself. We are one of 6 campus community resource centers at UC San Diego, and our heart, focus, passion is on serving Native American students. We have 2 main kind of charges at the center. The first one is more of an inward facing charge, which is to serve our Native American students at UC San Diego, both undergraduate and graduate students. And we do that by trying to create a community on campus that is, we really want to create a place that feels like a home away from home, because UC San Diego is, it's a big campus. We are pushing 40,000 students at UCSD. And we want to have a place on campus that is a safe place, a welcoming place, some place that we can call just for us, you know, for Native American students. So we have our small center there. And then throughout the year, we do a variety of different events and programs that honor Native communities, spotlight different students, and also create opportunities just for kind of social engagement and fun, you know, for us all to come together and have some snacks or share, you know, different aspects of our culture with each other. Um, the center was born out of a student movement, so it really would not even exist were it not for some student activists. So we have them to thank for the center. Our resource center, like I said, although our passion, our heart is for Native American students, we are open to all. So you can, you know, we often find that we have lots of friends who visit the center and utilize our space as well. The second kind of facet of our center, like I said, the first one is more inward facing. The second one is a little more outward facing, where we're also charged with serving and building positive relationships with our local tribal communities. And we do that in a number of ways too. I think Corinne's going to talk a little bit more about some of our specific interactions with the local tribal communities, but that's a great way for our students to get involved with the local community as well as the campus community. The physical space, the center itself, of course, right now, everything is in the virtual world. So we're not back on campus yet, but when we do come back to campus, we are located in the Price Center, which is one of the main hubs of the campus. There's a lot of restaurants downstairs, so people spend their lunch hour there. There's some great study spaces in the Price Center. So it's kind of, you know, like I said, it's a really vibrant place on campus. And our center is right on the second floor. If you've ever visited the campus or when you get a chance to, when you find Rubio's, we're right upstairs. We're right on top of Rubio's. That's kind of the point of reference that I tell everybody. And the center, it's a place where you can come and get your work done. We have computers that you can use. We have free printing for our Native students. All of our student organizations meet in the center. It's also a place where you can come and just relax and chill. You know, we have some comfy chairs that you can sit. I think one summer we actually binge watched one of the seasons of Stranger Things all together. So there's a lot of different activities and things that you can do at the center. So that's a little bit about that, and we'll talk about that more too when you're in your one-on-ones. Corinne?
All right, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the three main areas of focus we have as the InnerTribal Resource Center. So we're really focused on student development. We support academic life and health and well-being for students. Some of the programs in which we do this is our study jams. We have that every quarter. It's an opportunity, at least when we were on campus, for students to come into the center. We had snacks all day. We made the center quiet place to study or write your term papers. We have our Native American Family Night, which we've done both virtually and in person. It's an opportunity for students and their family and friends to come together in intentional community building. We've had games virtually like Jeopardy! And then when we're in person, we've done things like ornament painting for winter break. And then we've also sent students to conferences and helped them prepare for the presentations and conference papers. We are actively engaging the campus. We share Native American cultures, politics, practices, histories, and contemporary issues with the campus community and so much more. And for example, it is currently Native American Heritage Month. And during November each year, we host a series of programs and events that focus on Native cultures, arts, and contemporary issues. And we have our community engagement. So San Diego County is home to 18 federally recognized tribal communities, and it's the most of any county in the country, as well as a significant urban Indian population. And our mission is to foster positive relationships and increase access to the university. And we're currently working with the Birch Aquarium at UCSD, it's a really great aquarium there. It's famous throughout San Diego. Working with them and the Kumeyaay community to feature and recognize Kumeyaay knowledge and land stewardship practices at Birch through the creation of programs, events, and feature the Kumeyaay language in their displays and in renaming coastal sites and the area's plants and animals. And then can you go to the next slide? And this picture here is from our Native American graduates honoring ceremony from not this past June, but the June before. And it's a more intimate ceremony than the campus-wide commencement. It's an opportunity for our graduating Native students to come together with their family and friends and to celebrate their achievements. Everyone gets a stole with their name and their tribal affiliation on it. And for those students who've been involved with the ITRC or with one of the student organizations, they get these really cool beaded medallions. And you also see we have our powwow princess. On the left there, our powwow princess plays an important role in our events as well. This is actually our current powwow princess. And she's done things as well as like our Native American Heritage Kickoff event. And then we also, by the way, we have a powwow too, but I'll let Elena continue.
I'm going to say a little bit about our Native student organizations, but I also just want to say a hello and welcome to all the folks that have just joined us recently. We've been going over the InnerTribal Resource Center and some of the resources and programs that we have, but I don't want you to worry about having missed anything or anything like that, because we will have an opportunity to break out in one-on-one sessions with the admissions officers, and during that time, Corinne and I and one of our students will sit back and talk more and more about the InnerTribal Resource Center. So welcome to those of you who have just joined us recently. The Native American, we have 4 Native American student organizations on campus, and this is really exciting for us. When I started at UC San Diego 4 years ago, we only had one, and that one student organization was NASA, the Native American Student Alliance, which is an undergraduate organization. And at that time, we had, I think Corinne was mentioning this earlier, we had about 5 participants that were really working hard to keep it afloat, keep it alive, keep the powwow going. So in the 4 years that I've been at UC San Diego, we have seen the creation of 3 additional student organizations, which is phenomenal, and also a huge increase in the participation of our Native students on campus. So this is to say that when you do come to campus, there is a space for you, whether it's just at the center by itself and you want to come and study and hang out and be part of our programs, or if you want to join one of our student organizations. NASA is specifically for undergraduate students, and AGSA, American Indian Graduate Student Association, is specifically for our graduate students. And then we have an ACES chapter. So if you're interested in science and engineering, ACES would be a place for you. Although, to be honest, when I was an undergraduate, I was also an ACES member, even though my major was Native American Studies and Education, but I like to go to all the conferences. So it would be worthwhile to sign up for that organization as well. And then we have a program for our Native American medical school students, or if that's something that you are interested in, we would definitely encourage you to reach out to ANAMS. Many of our students are involved in multiple student organizations, so it's a great way to be involved and meet other folks. So with that, I want to turn it over to our friends from the RASA Resource Centro, who are going to walk you through the PIQs, or the personal insight questions. It's going to be Diana and Juan. And again, just another friendly reminder that if you have any questions at any point during the presentation, feel free to add those. I believe you have access to the chat. So if you can add it to the chat, that would be great. If you want to wait until the presentation is over and ask just kind of, organically, that's fine too. I'm going to turn it over to Deanna, and you guys just let me know when you need me to advance. Deanna, was this your slide or is this for Juan?
No, I think Juan might be having troubles.
Oh.
Juan, are you there? Well, I can just go ahead. So,
girl.
For the PIQ basics, we just wanted to start off by letting y'all know that the 3 main points of my camera was off. I apologize. The 3 main points of the PIQs. So the first point would be that it completes the application, right? So you can't submit the application without completing these personal insight questions. And there are 8 PIQ questions where a student has a chance to share about themselves. And you have to answer 4 out of the 8. And it doesn't matter what order you answer them. You just choose the ones you feel the most strongly about, or the ones you feel that pertain to your experiences and your like life the most. These questions add a lot of value to your application because they help showcase the experiences you've been through, the skills and qualities that you've acquired through those experiences, the challenges that you've overcome, and the way that you've developed throughout your life. They help really reflect who you are, right, and the values you carry. These 3 points do a really good job in summarizing what the PIQs are all about, the purpose and the intentions. So like I said, the first point is that it completes the application. You can't submit the UC Insight application without completing these questions. And make sure that you take your time and write these to the best of your ability. So have someone look at them and just make sure you're being thorough about your responses. The second is that the responses set students apart, right? So applying to any UC school is really competitive. So you really want to make sure you give personal insight to help you stand out from everybody else. You want to be able to talk about your life, your struggles, your experiences, and your accomplishments, right? And which won't make you stand out from the other applicants. And the third is that these questions are a form of self-advocacy, right? So it's really good to think about these questions as a type of interview, except there is now more time to really think about what would you say, about what you would say. Like in an interview, you would walk in and you don't really know what they're going to ask you. And with these questions, you know what they're going to ask you and you can prepare, right? You can self-reflect and really put time into these questions. You really want to make sure you put yourself in the spotlight and talk about your life overall when answering these questions. Don't really brag, but make yourself look good when answering these questions. So moving on to question number 1. I invite you all to read this question with me. Describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. So you want to begin this question by really reflecting on and asking yourself questions like, what does leadership look like to me? What does it mean to me? And let's remember that leadership is a really broad term that can be defined differently, right? So it can mean stepping up in your family or taking on a leadership role in your community or school. And it can definitely be influenced by your culture. So like, let's say your family really emphasizes your roles in your family. We can definitely put that in your response. And remember to be aware of not focusing too much on the describe part or the summarizing throughout the essay, but really focusing on the analyzing and reflecting on the significance of the experience you're writing about, right? So for example, did having a strong familial role really lead you to wanting to pursue a career in working with families or with children? And this question is a really good opportunity for you to expand on how your experiences in leadership strengthen your application. So always tie that back. So moving on to question number 2, and I invite you all to ask questions if about question number 1 or question number 2. So I invite you all to read this with me. Every person has a creative side, and it can be expressed in many ways: problem solving, original and innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. So I also recommend that you all start this question with some self-reflection, open up a journal and ask yourself, do I approach situations in a way that is unique or creative? And sometimes people can narrow art down to just music and painting, but it can mean so much more. Creativity and art are really broad terms, and it can mean many a number of things, from questioning and challenging education, right? So are you why does my school not have ethnic studies as a part of the curriculum, right? Or it can also mean finding expression in your culture through art or speech, like poetry or storytelling. And it can also mean finding creative ways to solve a technological problem. Like, did your scooter stop working and you figured out how to get to the store, or little things like that. that really showcase who you are. And this question is a really good opportunity to reflect on what values you carry. Like, why does that creativity matter to you? Was this creativity influenced by your culture, by your family, by your identity, by a friend? Be specific when you're answering these questions and really tie that back to why you stand out to universities. So I'm gonna switch it back over to Juan if he's able to do question number 3.
Are y'all able to see me and hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Okay.
My bad. I'm using my phone. My computer just froze. So thank you, Diana, for taking over that part. Like, I'm really sorry. So going on to question number 3. So what would you say is your greatest talent or skill, and how have you developed and demonstrated that talent over time? So you notice how I have these two highlighted terms, and the first one is greatest talent or skill, and that's because you could practically talk about anything that you feel that you're really good at or most passionate about. And this could be anything, like it could be a hands-on activity, it could be something more personal. For example, you might be really good at playing a sport, you might be really good at cooking, dancing, or even something like, maybe you're really good at public speaking, or you're good with time management, or being bilingual. I would say that's one of my greatest skills, being able to talk Spanish and English fluently. But despite what skill you end up choosing, you want to focus more on how you developed and demonstrated that talent over time. So like, how did you acquire, who or what inspired you? Or was it something that you were naturally good at? Or was it something that took a lot of practice? And it's good to talk about what you have achieved through it, like awards, recognition. But you want to focus more on the background or story behind this. So like, how has it helped you? What did you learn? Has there been any events in your life where this skill really came in handy? Really, what makes it so special to you? And also something I recommend is that you tie back this special talent of yours to your future. So how do you plan to implement it or apply it to your life in college as well as after college? And a quick tip would be, just don't brag about yourself, but talk good about yourself while being humble at the same time. So now moving on to question number 4. So describe how you have taken advantage of a significant education opportunity or work to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. So notice this question has 2 parts, but you only have to choose and answer one of them. So the first part talks about taking advantage of a significant educational opportunity. So notice the word educational. That's because you want to keep it school related. So you could talk about an opportunity, for example, maybe you got an internship, or you were a TA, a teaching assistant, or you were able to tutor, or you took part of a lab. And you want to kind of give some context about this opportunity. So how did you like acquire it? What did it require you to do? How much time did you put into it? But you want to focus more on the effects that it had on you. So what did you learn? How has it helped you? And how do you plan to apply what you learned to your future? So you basically want to talk about an experience and the benefits that you gain from it. Now, onto the second part of the question is about overcoming an educational barrier. So just like the first part, notice the word educational. You want to talk about a barrier that is school related, and this barrier could come in many forms. It could be, a mistake, a setback, a personal issue. To be more specific, maybe you would miss school because you had to take care of a family member, a sick family member, or you had to take care of younger siblings, or even something like failing a test, or even worse, failing a class. It all counts. And you want to be able to tie this challenge or this barrier to your education. So, what challenges did it create to your education? How did it affect you school wise? But you want to focus more on the analysis on how you were able to overcome this barrier. So, what steps did you take? Was it something that you were able to do on your own? Or was it something where you had to seek help? As well, what qualities did you use? What skills did you use? As well as what qualities and skills did you learn? And how do you plan to apply what you learned to your future? So despite what part of this question you end up choosing, something I recommend is to always tie back the benefits that you gain from either experience to your future. And remember, you only have to choose and answer one of the parts and keep it school related. So now I'm gonna switch it back to Liana, who will go over questions 5 and 6.
Yeah, I invite you all to read this question with me. Describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? So it may be difficult to answer this question because it deals with, difficult challenges, but we always encourage folks to answer this question to really show the reader your resiliency and your strengths and how you're able to be a problem solver even through difficult situations, right? And remember not to focus too much on like the summarizing portion, but more so on how you overcame that challenge. Always remember to tie it back to the academic achievement so that the reader gets the full picture of your past and your present and how that's going to influence your future. Like being able to overcome difficult situations is especially important in like college when things could get overwhelming. And remember to talk about yourself and not focus on someone else's story. Y'all have unique experiences that are important and that should be heard. So moving on to question number 6. I invite you all to read this question along with me. Think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside and or outside of the classroom. So you want to begin this question with some self-reflection, like why does that subject inspire me and what has come out of that inspiration? For example, did you really like history and you started volunteering somewhere that you can tutor folks? Or did you really start liking math from helping a sibling learn? These all are valid in being able to write about them, right? There's literally, you can write about history, philosophy, anything that inspires you and anything that you want to move forward with in college or beyond that. And remember to always tie back to how you've taken this outside the classroom so that the reader really gets to know how you are able to take school and apply it to like your life, right? Or are you now looking like a future career in history or math? So I'm gonna switch it back to Juan for question number 7.
All right, so on to question number 7. So what have you done to make your school or your community a better place? So when answering these questions, you first want to define what a school or community means to you. And some of you might be thinking, well, school is like a high school and community is like the area where you live. But you want to keep in mind that there are many types and forms of communities. You might be part of your school community, you might be part of a church community, your neighborhood community, your tribal community, or even like an online community, especially with everything being virtual nowadays. So you want to be able to describe this, but you want to focus more on the steps that you took on what you did and like to make it a better place. So some example could be, maybe at your school, you notice that your school ain't really social. You don't really have that much clubs, orgs, so there's not really interaction. So you decide to create like a club, let's say the Call of Duty club, because you notice that that's what a lot of students be like playing nowadays. So, and that makes your school a better place because now you make it more social. Now you have kids interacting with each other. You create bonds, relationships between students. So overall, you make the communication within your school much better. Another one could be maybe, with this whole pandemic thing going on, you notice that a lot of people in the area where you live, they lost their jobs or they're having a really hard time finding a job. So you decide to do something about it. So you get together with some friends, you help fundraise, you donate to those people that are struggling, and you're making your community a better place because you're helping those in need. And that's kind of the path that you want to take when you answer this question. You want to first define what it means to you and then give an analysis of the steps that you took to make it a better place. So moving on to question number 8. So question number 8 reads, beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you stand out as a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? So when you first read this could be a pretty tough question, but you want to make sure that you treat this question apart from all the other ones. You don't want to use it as a continuation of any other of the PIQ questions. For instance, let's say you answered question number 3 and you want to include something else, or you forgot to say something. You don't want to say in question number 8, okay, going back to question number 3, you don't want to do that. You want to treat this question individually, just like you should treat every other question. So this question gives you the chance to talk about something that you have not talked about in any of the other PIQ questions, or something that you feel that doesn't apply to any of the other PIQ questions. For instance, you could talk about maybe about your identity. You could talk about your identity, your cultural heritage, about your values. What do you value so much and why you want to be detailed about this, and explain why you feel that makes you stand out. Another one could be maybe, you're a first gen student, and this is important because you're especially motivated to, to keep striving and graduate college, to be the first one in your family and your community to graduate college and be a role model for your siblings, for future generations, or for your community and overall. Or maybe you want to help out your family financially. So you want to be able to you want to talk about something that you have not talked about in any of the other PIQ questions, and be detailed about it as why you think is going to make you stand out as a strong candidate. So that is pretty much it. That is pretty much what we have for the PIQ questions. We didn't go too much into detail into each one. Remember, you only have to answer 4 out of the 8, and we recommend that you choose the ones that you feel more close to, more related to, more strong about. So thank you guys. I hope y'all were able to take some notes and learn something about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Juan and Deanna. We really appreciate your guidance through this process. We're getting ready to kind of transition to the second part of our event tonight. But before we do, I wanted to give a special thanks and acknowledgement again to Deanna and Juan for breaking down the PIQ questions for us. We also wanted to give a shout out to Roberta Camarena, Michael Trask, Milan Boat, and Christina Sandoval Paquette from the Office of Admissions for helping to organize our event tonight, and for those Michael, Milan, and Christina for making themselves available for the one-on-one sessions that's coming up right now. We also wanted to give a special thanks to Leonard Almero, who is our Native American alum, who is going to be joining us to answer questions about like the student perspective and things like that. We have here some ways to stay in contact with the InnerTribal Resource Center, including mine and Corinne's email addresses. We have some information from the admissions office as well, and we'll share that during the breakout sessions.